Support WrestleTalk!
Share this video on social media.
Thank you for your awesome support on Patreon, WrestleTalk's personal ring announcer, Rodrigo Benitez. Brock Lesnar returns to WWE. Kevin Owens sues Shane McMahon, and Baron Corbin's King of the Ring coronation comes up short. See what I did there? And what was the real reason Brock Lesnar was brought back to WWE? Click the timestamps down below to jump to any of those stories right now. I am Luke Owen. Press the thumbs up button, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below to answer our question of the day. Do you think Brock Lesnar will become WWE Champion on the first episode of Smackdown on Fox? And make sure you vote in the poll above my head to let me know what you thought of the show, where you can choose from Smacknificent, Smacktastic, Smack Bang in the Middle, Smackdowner, and a smack in the face. This is the 17th of September 2019 edition of SmackDown Live. The show opened with a very long six-man tag between New Day and #FTRKO, who are really starting to feel like legacy at this point, with Revival wearing Randy Orton-inspired gear, while Orton has made no effort to wear Revival stuff. This went through 2 commercial breaks and was full of back-and-forth action to make all 6 guys look great. The heels worked over Xavier Woods' injured leg before Kofi Kingston got the hot tag to brilliantly run wild. The heels tried to hit the Super RKO, but Woods and Big E stopped them, allowing Kingston to hit the Trouble in Paradise on Scott Dawson for the win. This was a lot of fun, and it really felt like it put a pin in the Kofi-Orton feud, which seemingly was confirmed as Brock Bloody Lesnar shockingly made his WWE return. Brock Lesnar appearing on SmackDown. It's almost as if they're moving to a big network or something. Paul Heyman challenged Kofi Kingston to a WWE Championship match, but not at Hell in a Cell, but for the first episode of SmackDown on Fox in a couple of weeks. Kofi accepted, and Lesnar ended the segment by laying him out with the F5. This, of course, is being done to pop a rating for the first episode of SmackDown on Fox, but it also helps elevate Kofi's WWE Championship run. For the first time since he won the belt at WrestleMania, his title reign actually feels in jeopardy. And if Lesnar wins and The Fiend beats Rollins at Hell in a Cell, that could set up Brock Lesnar versus The Fiend at Survivor Series, and I never knew I wanted something quite so bad. Michael Cole had a sit-down interview with Eric Rowan where, among doing dialogue from Goodfellas, said no one will disrespect him ever again. Promos have not really been Eric Rowan's strong suit over the years, but he has been really great these last few weeks. SmackDown suddenly remembered they'd set up a Shinsuke Nakamura versus Ali feud back in July, but never actually paid it off. So they dusted it off and brought it back here. Prince Ali, unlucky he got beat up, and he got Kinshasa right in the face. The recently fired Kevin Owens then appeared in the crowd, taking a seat with a ticket he bought himself. Shane McMahon saw this backstage, with Nicholas's dad telling Shane O'Mac that there was someone out there to see him, and that someone served him papers. You got served, bro! Shane was not pleased about it. And this led to what is probably the least interesting story in WWE currently. Shane McMahon feuding with Kevin Owens over money. It's uninteresting because it's based around silly corporate nonsense that only business type people could actually care about. What 8-year-old could possibly care about all of this? Kevin Owens is suing Shane McMahon for $25 million, something Shane called the largest wrongful termination lawsuit. They shouted at each other back and forth, and Owen said if he wins the case, he'll be allowed to fire Shane McMahon on TV, which sounds like something that would never actually hold up in court. This was pretty rubbish, to be honest, and it's a complete waste of Kevin Owens. Remember when he was one of the hottest things in the company? The Omni Shane remembers. Speaking of suing, Charlotte Flair was getting ready for her match when Ric Flair, of all people, walked into her locker room. He didn't come out for Charlotte's match, though, where she took on Sasha Banks. This wasn't on the same level as their very hot series of matches back in 2016, but it wasn't trying to be, ending with a lame DQ when Bayley jumped in to save Banks in the figure 4. They beat down Flair for a bit, but rather than Control-C, Control-V the segment from Raw with Becky Lynch, it was Carmella, of all people, who ran down to make the save. So they they just Control-C, Control-V Charlotte instead. The tall blondes unremarkably stood tall against the non-blondes. Vince has a type. Baron Corbin's King of the Ring coronation streak didn't get the sort of heat it would have got 6 months ago, but he's so good at being a heel, he can make this very silly gimmick work. He brought out Chad Gable to make some short jokes, but Shorty G destroyed all of the King of the Ring guff, including stamping on the crown. I thought it was supposed to be prestigious. The crowd was super into Gable here, and WWE could have a bona fide babyface on their hands if they just book him correctly. Corbin's selling of the destruction was also brilliant. Heavy Machinery quickly dispatched of the B-Team, with Otis debuting his new look as the sexiest man in wrestling. He's sexy and he does it. And the main event of the show saw Daniel Bryan come out to cut a babyface promo, saying he would never lie to the fans and he never lied about attacking Roman Reigns. Eric Rowan came out and Bryan added another layer of emotion to this feud by telling him to do his worst, because nothing can be worse than their friendship ending. Luke Harper jumped into the ring to assist Rowan in the beatdown of Bryan, and Roman Reigns ran down to make the save. He wasn't as effective as Carmella, however, as both he and Bryan were laid out, with Bryan being double chokeslammed through the announcer's table. This was a wonderfully chaotic ending to SmackDown, with security being slammed onto the concrete, and even Tom Phillips getting slammed into the ground harder than... Actually, I'm not going to finish that joke, it's a PG show. WWE are doing everything they can to make Rowan look like a destructive force, and they are succeeding. This was a really good episode of SmackDown, with the huge return of Brock Lesnar, the very fun 6-man tag, and all of the Rowan Harper stuff being the highlight. Aside from the Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon feud going into sillier and sillier territory, and their SmackDown Women's Champion being booked weaker and weaker as each week passes, SmackDown has a lot of great stuff going on right now as it heads towards Fox. This week's SmackDown Live is Smacktastic. And now, over to Pete with the news.
What a beastly review, Luke! Because Brock Lesnar, beast. Anywho, before we get into the news... There's just one day to go until the WrestleTalk magazine launches in shops all over the UK. I'm talking supermarkets, I'm talking newsagents, I'm talking corner shops. We've got it all covered. I cannot wait. Support WrestleTalk and support wrestling print media. And now, the news. Former #1 contender to the WWE Championship, Randy Orton, has a certain reputation on Twitter where he's... how do I put this nicely? He's a dick, but he's a funny dick. We like him. But in a rare showing of respect, after Lance Storm tweeted out complimenting King Baron Corbin's in-ring work, Orton responded by saying, "Hate to say it, but he's one of the few who gets the art." Wow. You know, it's nice sometimes to be reminded that no matter how much Orton trolls others on Twitter, deep down we all know he's just a softie who just cares about... Never mind, because he then tweeted this follow-up a day later. "I'd like to retract this statement because I had been drinking heavily." Gets us once again, no one is safe on Twitter. He then did a subsequent tweet saying, "All hail King Corbin, also I retract this statement." Stop being so good at Twitter, Randy. Speaking of not being safe, WCW's legacy sure isn't safe from the grasp of WWE, as once again, WWE are bringing back Starrcade, and once again, it will be a 1-hour live event on the WWE Network. Starrcade will be taking place on December 1st from the Infinite Energy Center in Georgia, with confirmed names so far of Becky Lynch, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Kofi Kingston, Bayley, AJ Styles, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, and Daniel Bryan. The last 2 Starrcade events have ended with AJ Styles winning in a steel cage match, so it'll be interesting to see what main events this time. Just kidding, it won't be interesting at all, because this is a house show just using WCW's version of WrestleMania to draw up some attention that doesn't actually matter at all. Admittedly, I guess it worked, because here I am talking about it. Someone who isn't there talking about it, though, is Vince McMahon. That's a weak segue, Pete. Following a report that Paul Heyman entirely ran this week's episode of Raw with no Vince McMahon, Triple H, or Kevin Dunn, the same trio weren't at SmackDown either. However, with no Paul Heyman running the show this time, who was in charge of SmackDown? Well, the duty fell to 4 people: Bruce Pritchard, Michael P.S. Hayes, head writer Ed Koskey, and Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff actually had some sort of control over SmackDown? Color me surprised. Whatever color that is. I do enjoy the parallel of Paul Heyman running Raw and no one believing in Eric Bischoff's abilities to run SmackDown enough, so they gave him 3 other guys to help him run SmackDown. It is worth noting, however, that Vince McMahon did still go over the plans for the show as he normally does, he just wasn't there in person, whereas Paul Heyman was seemingly given the keys to the castle, so to speak. No reason has been given for Vince's absences, but speculation is rife that it's something to do with the XFL. Let's see if Vince McMahon sticks around once the XFL kicks off in 2020. Do you kick off in American football? I don't sports. But something that will be kicking off SmackDown's run on Fox is a WWE Championship match between Kofi Kingston and Brock Lesnar. Brock shockingly returned on last night's SmackDown and inserted himself straight into the title picture, because he's Brock Lesnar. While this might have seemed like a panic move in order to boost ratings for their Fox debut show, according to John Pollock of Post Wrestling, this was actually a move that has been in the works for a long time. This is of course a huge deal for WWE, with Fox spending a reported $1 billion in order to secure SmackDown on their network. Now with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar on the blue brand, it seems certain that it will become the A show in due course. Lesnar's return and, let's be real, probable title win at the debut show seems to indicate this even further. Can't wait for another Brock title reign only for Roman Reigns to beat him at WrestleMania. Where have I heard that one before? If Brock does win though, and The Fiend wins at Hell in a Cell, and they do SmackDown vs. Raw at Survivor Series, Fiend vs. Lesnar. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. Yes, please. Is E3 finished? Find out by pressing the video to the right to be taken to Screenstalker with Ollie and Laurie. And Vince McMahon wants to bury someone backstage in WWE. Press the video below that to find out more here on WrestleTalk. A special thank you to our pledge hammers on Patreon, some of whom you can see scrolling below me right now. I've been Pete Quinnell, and that was wrestling.